Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. Now this is going to be the beginning of some Christmas lead-up videos, a little bit like Vlogmas, except that we're starting at the end of November because December is hectic. And I need to start earlier because when I try and start the 1st of December, it just doesn't go well. So these will be fairly more regular videos than I would normally put out, but not necessarily daily. We will see how we go with that. And I'm going to cover a range of things. I'm going to cover all our Christmas baking. We have a lot planned. We have some chocolate jelly and coffee jelly puddings that I really want to do. I've got some dome molds coming for those. I bought some of the pastry for Dubai chocolates, and we're going to do a few different things with that. And I've got some pistachio cream. We are going to do our standard gingerbread and some shortbreads and some biscottis. The kids are going to do some decorating. I bought some disposable piping bags, so rather than using tips this time, to see if we can do some royal icing style icing and the kids can manage with that, which would be really nice. And again, it's something that we sometimes end up not doing because it gets to the end of December and I've run out of time. So we're starting early. It is a couple of weeks until my next grocery trip. So we are on the end of the fresh food that we had. So there is less food prep required. So that's why I thought if I start now, because once I come back from the groceries, there will always be more food prep that's required. There is a few things that I will need to do some of the stuff that I want that I was going to buy in the middle of the month grocery. We'll see how we go with that too. And some of this stuff is not going to be Christmas themed at all. It's just going to be part and parcel of the lead up to the Christmas season, the end of the grocery period, and baking and sharing some of these recipes that I haven't had a chance to do before now. So that's the idea. We're going to go for a 15-20 minute video. We'll see how I manage with that. We probably will have some significant variations in time, and that's the YouTube algorithm doesn't really prefer that, but we will see how we go with that. I have a tendency to squirrel and ramble, and so, you know, we will see how we go. But today, there is only a few of the kids home. A couple of them are with Darryl out at a church function, so I am going to make bagels. So I used to make sourdough bagels all the time. The thing is that I don't do sourdough at the moment at all. I have some starter in the fridge that is not being used because I just don't have the mental bandwidth to track my starter. Now I have a whole video on making it into the rhythm of your family and everything else, and I used to be really good at that. At this point in time, I cannot manage it. I feed it, I pull it out, and then it goes flat, and then I forget, and then by the time I feed it again and it's ready to use, I have already made something else, and it's just not working for me at the moment. So I have been relying on yeasted doughs, and honestly, it is so convenient. I know they're not as good for you theoretically, but it is so convenient to be able to just use instant yeast and get something done when you want it. So I'm going to make bagels. It is already lunchtime. The kids can have something else for lunch, leftovers of some sort. I think there's leftover flatbreads. I think there is butter chicken on the shelves. They can find something. The kids are at home. But I'm going to make bagels, and I think we're going to have them for dinner because I pulled some chicken out. So Darryl can have some chicken without the bread, but the kids and I can have maybe open bagels with chicken and cheese and some mayo and that sort of thing on it. So that is the plan for today, is to make those same day bagels that I have only made once so far. I adapted my sourdough recipe, made it once, and it worked out perfectly. So fingers crossed that it's going to do the same this time, and I'll walk you through it, and then hopefully I'll get it up on the website. That's sort of the plan too. Some of these things that I just cannot seem to get up on the website, I don't have time. We do these videos that'll go with them, and then I can put them up. So I'm going to mix up the dough first. So I'm going to pull out my KitchenAid bowl, and we will start there. All right, so this bagel recipe, this same day bagel recipe, is super, super simple, which is great. So we're going to start off with about 600 grams of water. I would normally use tepid water, but the temperatures today, I'm just using it straight out of the Berkeys. So we want 600 grams of that. We're going to add about 15 grams of yeast. We're going to add around about 40 grams of sugar, which helps with the browning, and the rise feeds the yeast. We're going to add about 20 grams of salt, and then we're just going to add about 1100 grams of bread flour. Now I held back a little bit of flour last time, an extra 100 grams to put in it if I needed it, because you want your bagel dough to be fairly stiff, but I didn't find that it needed it at all. So 1100 grams worked. So we will see if that is the case again. It should be though. So now I'm just going to grab my dough hook and I'm going to knead this. And I'm going to knead it for about 5-6 minutes. We want it fairly smooth. We're not looking for window panes or anything else though, but we do want it fairly smooth. And because it's a stiff dough, it takes that little bit extra to knead. Now you can do this by hand, but I wouldn't recommend it. You can. I couldn't, not with my hands and wrists and everything the way they are. It is a stiff dough, which does mean that it's a little bit challenging to knead by hand appropriately, but at the same time, you're going to let it proof, and proofing does wonders for dough. So, you know, some people do like a 15-20 minute knead of like brioche doughs initially, and then they don't even do a second proof or anything like that because they've got all the gluten development they need in that initial part. We're doing a second proof. So realistically, the dough needs to be brought together into a shaggy dough and proofed appropriately, and it will still be fine. But it is nicer and easier to do it in a stand mixer. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it on my KitchenAid for about 5 minutes, and then I'll put it in the container. Dough hook in, and we'll set it to kneading, except it's not plugged in, which is pretty normal for my house. We just do not have enough power points for all the appliances, so we have to swap them in and out, which is fine. So I'm just going to let that go. All right, so we've got this sort of soft dough. As I said, it's not important for window panes or anything else for this bagel dough because it's a stiff dough, but you can see that it's all well emulsified, all in one ball. It's all come away from the edges of the bowl, and that's the main thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in my container to proof. I'm going to spray with some oil, except my oil sprayer is absent. Darryl was using it to oil the hair clippers. So, you know, I have to turn the fly spray on. The flies are bad today. So I'm just going to top that up. And I will grease the container that the dough is to proof in because it will make it easier to pull the dough out once it is proofed. So go, lid on it. I'm only going to do a single batch this round. I did a double batch last time and we did eat them all, but I've got a few things planned and I don't want to, it's warm, I don't want it to overproof before I can get a hold of it. So I'm going to just do a single batch just like that. Alrighty, so our dough has proofed. We are now going to get it out and shape it into our bagels. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to put my water on to boil because it always takes a while. So I'm going to leave this for a second. I'm going to get a really big pot up with water to boil so we can boil our bagels. In this heat, by the time I finish shaping the last bagel, the first ones will be ready to go in the pot, and the water just takes a while to boil. So we have just a large, you want a nice wide pot, and we're just going to add a little bit of sugar into that water. And we're just going to bring it up to a low boil, and that's what we boil our bagels in. So I've got that sitting there. Might find a lid to bring it up to temperature a bit faster, and then we'll shape the bagels. All right, so back to our bagel dough. All right, now I don't recall how much this weighs in total, so let's check that. Doesn't like that lid. Ugh. About 1.8. All right, so if we go 90 grams, then that should work quite well. So we're going to, first of all, get into 90 gram balls. And we're just going to start off with it in a ball and let that rest while I get the rest of them going. So 90 grams. You can of course just cut this dough. I just not real sure where my dough cutter is. I've actually ordered myself a couple more I'm going to try 3D printing them at some point, but at the moment I have too many orders to do as it is, so I'm not going to use the time to do an experiment. I will do that after Christmas when I've got downtime, in that week between Christmas and New Year's, when we don't do a lot of anything except play games and downtime. That's the plan anyway. So I'm just going to go through and get all of these into 90-gram balls, and then I'll bring you back. All right, so there are multiple ways of rolling bagels. I have a favorite, which I will show as well. But a common one is to roll them into a log and flatten one end. I will do one like that to show you, but it is not my favorite way of doing them. So they roll it, mind you, everything's oiled because I was the fan's on and I didn't want the dough to dry out. So they roll them into a log for whichever, circumference size you're looking for your bagels. And then one end they flatten out. And then they bring the other end round into that flattened end and they curl that over the flattened end. And then put it in their hands and they roll, except I've got too much oil on my in your hand, through the hole, and you roll that together until it comes together. Now, as I said, I've got a whole lot of oil. I need a bit of flour. Let's flour this board slightly. All right, so we've got our sausage. We've got one end that is flattened out nicely. The other end goes into that flattened bit like that, and then you rest your hand in there and roll it. As I said, this is not my favorite way, and I think this is why, because I never have a whole lot of success at getting it to roll appropriately, and maybe that's because I use I use oil for my dough. But that's what they do, all right? So that is an option if you so desire. It's not an option that I choose, and I actually think I'm going to ball that back up because I'm just not happy with it. So maybe that's just a skill set that I don't have. Maybe that's a skill issue rather than a technique, but I don't like doing them like this. So this one's going to go rolled back up and go to the back of the line so that the dough has a chance to loosen back up again. All right, and this is how I like to do them. So I've got a ball, really, really simple. I place it on the mat and I stick my thumb through the ball, and then I pick it up and my thumb is almost all the way through the ball. So then I just use my fingers to spread it slightly and I spread the ball. And then I just give it a spin to nice and even it out, and we have a bagel. I just can't see anything easier than that. So then they're going to go on a tray to have a bit more of a proof. So thumb through, finger through the middle, stretch them out a little bit. Be careful because this dough is pretty malleable because the temperatures, so I don't want to tear it. And then give it a bit of a swirl. They don't need to be perfect, really don't. And honestly, some of my kids prefer them without the holes in them because then they find them easier to use. So when they proof and they go back in the center and you no longer have holes in the middle, some of my kids actually prefer them that way. So that's all I'm going to do. Thumb through, open the hole in the middle, give them a little gentle stretch, and we've got bagels. All right, so our water is bubbling. Now it'll drop off the bubble really quickly once I add the bagels to it because it's going to cool it down. The bagels have only been sitting for a little while, but they are proofed enough because of the weather at the moment, and they will puff up again in the pot. So we're just going to place as many as we can in the pot that will fit without sticking to each other. I actually have a larger pot that I like to use, but I couldn't find it. And it also uses a lot of water to do it. And I'm only doing a single batch of bagels, so it probably isn't that big a deal. So there we go. We're going to Normally, actually, I would have put them in upside down. I didn't think about it. I'll do the next batch upside down. It doesn't really matter. It's completely an aesthetic thing, but the bubbles are in the top. Tend to put them in upside down. We'll do the next batch upside down. So we're going to boil them for about 30 seconds on each side. It is really personal preference here. The longer you boil them, the thicker and chewier that crust is. So it depends on how you like your crust. I like mine fairly thin. I like it to have a little bit of a crisp, but fairly easy chew. I have problems with my teeth and my face and things like that. I don't like food that requires extensive, really hard chewing. I eat my steaks rare and things like that to make it all nice and easy. So I prefer them just a little bit thin. So we're going to boil them on each side for about 30 seconds. Flipping them is super easy with a perforated spoon. All you do is you push on one side and let them flip themselves. Basically, press on one corner and then they will flip themselves. These are not my neatest bagels in the world, but it does not matter. They will still taste good. And as you can see, they've expanded as they're boiled, so you wouldn't want any more than this in this pot. So be aware of that when you're putting them in. Like I probably could have fit one more in there while it was smaller, but now that they've proofed, they've expanded, and we don't want them to push on each other too much. They don't generally stick because the water and everything else, but you don't want to risk that and then ruining them. So we've got these ones boiling. We'll pull these out. We'll do the next lot. Now, part of the reason you normally do them face down is because you want to put them face up on the tray when you're putting them out. So if I had have done them the opposite way, it would have just been a little bit easier, but it's easy enough. Just flip them into the spoon and place them on the tray so that you've got the nice rounded bit up, facing up. There we go, and we're just going to place the next lot in gently. You can wait for the water to come back up to a boil if you need to. It's still simmering, so I'm okay with it. And again, I forgot to do the upside down thing. It doesn't, as I said, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to let them boil for 30 seconds. The other thing you need to do is you need to top them. Well, you don't need to, you choose to. Normally I would use an everything bagel seasoning, but I do not have any made up at the moment. And I have no sesame seeds. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of garlic powder, some onion flakes, some poppy seeds. I would normally use garlic flakes if I was using sesame seeds because of the size of them. I'm just flipping this extra batch of bagels while I'm talking. So I've got garlic powder and that in there, and I will put a little bit of flaked salt. Yes, I would normally use garlic clusters, like flaked garlic rather than powdered garlic when I have sesame seeds, because you want each of the ingredients to be a similar sort of a shape and size to sit on the bagel evenly, but because we're using poppy seeds, it's not going to work anyway. So they're still damp from the boiled water, and that's what we're going to do. Obviously I delayed a little bit longer than I should have here, so they're not sticking as well as they could, but it will work. So just dip each of them. These other ones have been boiling a bit longer than I'd like as well because I got my timing wrong. They are forgiving, so just dampen to the top of that one again. Let's pull these other ones out. SD card got full, things happen. This is the last batch. Now I remember to put these face down this time, so you can see that as they're face up, they look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing if you put them face down first. So this is the last lot to go in. Now do remember that your the amount that fits on the tray before they've been boiled is going to be more than what fits on the tray after they've been boiled, because they expand, and you also don't want to crowd them too much on the pan that you're baking either. So we've got these ready to pop out. So we've got both trays here. This one's got a little more on it than the other one, which is fine. So we're just going to dip these ones. I like them all savory. You can do cinnamon sugar, you can do all sorts of things. You can do mix blueberries into your bagels, which is always nice, but I like them savory. But do you know what? When I had the lemon curd, I still had lemon curd on these savory salted bagels, because I quite like that whole salt and savory factor with the sweet. So you can put anything you want in them, really. So, oh, they're a bit hot. So there we go. We have them all ready to go. Now they're going to go in the oven for about 25 minutes at about 190, 200. Straight in the oven like this. I've already had it preheating, and then they're all baked, and I'll bring you back. And our bagels are done. So that was 25-ish minutes in the oven. And they're nice and toasty on the bottom, nice and crispy. So we're just going to let these cool for a bit, and I'll cut one open a bit later to show you. We'll have them, I said, with some chicken or something for dinner, so I'll show you them then. They probably could have proved a little bit longer at second round, but we're juggling a lot of things, and these will be perfectly tasty. Soft but crunchy, and just, yeah, really good. So this is what they look like. All right, bagels cut in half. Now these are definitely like what I would call a New York style bagel. This particular batch, they're very chewy, which isn't a bad thing. It's just the way that these ones are. My timing was a little bit off today, trying to schedule everything else. I'll show a photo of the last batch I made that were a lot fluffier and puffier. Same recipe, just timing's different, and that's the main thing with breads, is that you have to look at your timing compared to the weather and all sorts of things. So I've fried up some crispy skin chicken thighs, we've got some bagels, and we're just going to do this for dinner. The kids, there's mayo, there's cheese, I think there's some coleslaw left, there's some tomatoes, whatever they want with it. But we've got bagels and we've got chicken, and we will make dinner out of it.